everyone, welcome to Big Talk live from the nation's capital. My name is Edika Michael. Tonight we look at ahead of the 2027 poll. The former governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, and all the opposition figures have met at the National Secretariat of the Opposition Social Democratic Party. In attendance at the party held in Abuja was the presidential candidate of the Opposition Action Alliance in the 2023 poll, Hamza Mustafa, retired, who served as the Chief Security Officer to General Sani Abacha from 1993 until his death on June 8, 1998. Although details of the party was not made known, it is believed that it was part of the ongoing moves by opposition politicians to unite under formidable political platforms to achieve their goals. El-Rufai, once a supporter but now critic of President Tinubu's style of governance, did not make the ministerial list after the Senate withheld its confirmation and those of two other, citing security report from the Department of State Services. And these two others who did not make the ministerial list at the time were the former senator from Taraba, Sani Danladi, a nominee from Delta State, Stella Okete, and others. But confirming this development, the spokesman for Atiku Abubakar, Shegun Shoyemi, wrote on Facebook about the meeting. You must set forth a strategic meeting called by His Excellency Shehu Gara, chairman of SDP, with El-Rufai, among others, which was a lot of concern, political conversation they had right there at the National Secretary of the Social Democratic Party. That's a update coming from some move by some politicians ahead of the 2027. Concerned about also reviewing what these current administrations are doing as well. And over there at Edo State, there are still tension within the councils, local government areas of Edo State, where there are concerned about some suspension by the parliament, which suspended some local government chairman, and the governor has alleged that they embezzle or they mismanage over 12 billion naira, and that is the reason why they were suspended by the different houses right there at the local government area of Edo State. And that has still draw a lot of concern about questioning the independent nature of the local government, what it means for us to have a local government free of the interferences of the state government and all of those concerns, most especially now that we have local government autonomy that have been granted back to the grassroots. That development is still a major conversation as far as Edo State is concerned, and not just happening to do. Other states are also watching to know how that actions, how that move will be resolved at the end of the day. Tonight on the show, everyone, we'll be turning attention to the issue of Nigeria-Niger relations. And there are a lot of regional politics that have been involved. And just yesterday as well, France has again denied allegations made by Niger Republic military leader Tijani that Nigeria offered space in its territory to France to destabilize the former French colony. The France political counselor to the embassy in Nigeria called the allegations groundless and said that such discussions never took place between France and Nigeria. Some stations in an interview with some news outlets said that the allegation is groundless. This has never been discussed nor even suggested by either France or Nigeria. I recall earlier that Tijani had claimed that France was negotiating with terrorists in Nigeria, including Boko Haram, and even alleged that France made a substantial payment to President Bola Tinubu to establish a military base in Nigeria. And however, some Nigerians, ministers like that of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, and the National Security Advisor have also denied these allegations, calling them baseless and an attempt to divert attention from Tijani's administration's failure. That's the development right there. And on the show tonight, I'm being joined by a lecturer from the Department of Political Science and International Relations from Nile University in Abuja. Dr. Abdulrazak Saliu is live here on the show to give us a proper understanding, explain the concern about the regional politics involved in Nigeria and Niger. Thanks so much, Doctor, for sparing some of your busy schedule and joining us on the show tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, a pleasure. I mean, Doctor, the concern about Nigeria's relations, Niger. Why that is really important is because we know how Nigeria shares boundary with Nigeria and what effect it means. The other time, people of Katsina State were raising concern. It looks that our lives is at danger. Sokoto are also making all of those outcry. For you, let's begin first with the issues that really attract, the Tijani's emergence as the leader of Niger. They have dethroned their leader, and the military junta took over from that country. Nigeria distanced themselves from that, especially when President Tinubu heading the ECOWAS said, we are not part of that arrangement. We just wanted to return back to the democratic rules. They even sent some delegation. So that was a concern of Nigeria. But what do you think has fallen out from these relations so far?
Thank you once again for having me. If you look at it critically in the global world, and most especially in the international relation, now let's narrow it down to West Africa, where both countries, Nigeria and Niger, falls. You notice that we have a long-standing relationship between these two countries that have been for a very long time, owing to our geopolitical strategic position. That is, we are all within the West African region, and away from that, we equally have some strong cultural and religious ties between these two countries. However, statistics have it that from 1990 down to the present day, that Franc West African countries, that is Francophone countries that were ruled by France, are the ones that occupy about 78% of countries that have been engaged in military coup. And one tool that the military usually fall back on is to create a politics that the overwhelming civilians, we want to accept them as being legitimate. So speeches from the president, from the ruler of Niger now, we can see that, yes, it can be in place for him to be able to win the heart of his people so that they can see him as being performing, and he should have something that he will hold on to for taking the political space illegally. As you all know, coup is is an intervention with through the barrel of gun, which most African countries, after keying into democratic system, have refused to want to be party with.
All right. I mean, much concern regarding the fact that Nigeria has a vision, has a mission to be playing the big brother role when it has to Africa, ECOWAS as well. The participation, most especially, is that they are also trying to get stability in that region. Do you feel that the people of Niger feel they are not stable? Because, as you said, it's about how the people feel. They have sold the ideology that, looks, democracy hasn't worked, it hasn't given us better, and that's the reason why they have this. So if Nigerians are constantly saying that we are trying to restore stability in your region, do you feel that this is a fight back? Because these allegations, government have said, can you give us proof? Where are the proofs that I was spared? What are the proofs that these were mobilized? What are the proofs of France based in the country? But it looks that this is just a fight back statement, or it might be also that those that also argued that it looks is true, that it can't just come out to give such quantum of allegation, that we probably may have some information within him. But looking at that, do you feel that it's also perceived that Nigeria's consistent concern about the leadership of Niger is the problem right here?
Thank you for asking me this question. In international relations, it is important that leaders taking the position of statesmanship should be should be responsible for their statement, most especially when it is based on allegation. So one cannot take it at hook, line, and sinker that the allegations, which we are still going to lie this statement on, is absolutely correct. In diplomacy, which most countries are falling back to, you need to be conscious of the utterances that is coming out of your mouth, and then you need to base them with concrete evidence. as far as the military leader of Niger cannot give us absolute and correct evidence that this is coming from a genuine report, then I think Nigeria have nothing to worry about. Having said that, Nigeria is a formidable player in the West African region and beyond. So I don't think that there is this competition between these two countries, because in terms of our capability, economy, population, trade relationship, Niger has always dwelled upon what? Nigeria. It might interest you to know that Nigerian-Niger trade relations span over $100 million. And not just that, apart from this, we equally have some economic relationship that goes beyond just trade. For example, the WAP initiative, that is the West African Power Production Initiative. Nigeria is supplying Niger with what? Source of power. So they depend on us virtually for most of the things. And away from that, we equally have this cultural ties between Niger and Nigeria, which they don't see themselves as really different from us. If you go to Ilela in Sokoto, if you go to Jibia in Katsina, these borders, the borders communities don't see themselves as being different from what? From Nigerians, because of the historical ties and then the border location that have bound them together. Apart from this, we equally have traditional rulers in pre-colonial system. From onset, the kingdoms of the Hausa people have what? Have their own sovereignty spanning across the demarcation which were created as a product of the British colonialism. So as such, one can see that yes, the military leaders are just banking upon this to gain more popularity, I think.
I mean, even when some people said it looks that Nigeria's president visit to France probably might have sparked that concern as well, because they said if other countries are cutting ties with France, I mean, why should Nigeria be falling back to having strong ties? Because the presidential banquet that was given to our president in France was suspicious to some person. Look, we are opening hands to embrace a country that some other West African countries are trying to cut ties from.
Yes, if you look at this critically, Macron has been what they call in Nigeria, and he has stayed in Lagos. When Tinubu, I want to believe, when President Tinubu, His Excellency, was the governor of Lagos. So they have a very age-long ties between these two people. And before then, even when our president was elected, he chose to have his holiday in France. So bringing this in now, I want to believe is just a kind of political gimmicks to devalue his relationship with France. Strategically speaking, one should not have enemies across the globe, because in international relations, it is a game of what? Interest. Where Nigeria could be, because Niger is having a crisis with France, that does not mean that Nigeria should key in, as far as it is not affecting the what? The interests of Nigeria. However, we must put Africa first. And in doing this, while all countries are keen and joining the popular system of government, which is democracy, irrespective of the fact that democracy is not an end in itself, however, this is the popular clamor among most countries that yes, let's adopt democracy because of the freedom and the rights of the people that it guarantees. So we shouldn't key in among those critics that are saying, oh, because President Tinubu was given a rousing welcome, that should diminish his relationship with France, I think.
I mean, because they are really accusing ECOWAS leaders of aligning well with much of the Western powers, much especially the France, at the detriment of their countries.
There is one thing that I want us to know. This is my field. if you choose to chest out and face the West, I can assure you that no leader will succeed by doing that. You have to be diplomatic about it, because you have to have a very strong plan of what disengaging with the West. They have destabilized a whole lot of countries before. Is it from Libya to Burkina Faso to Central Africa? We've seen their involvement in destabilizing countries, including in the First or Second Republic. We have seen their involvement in some of the overthrown that have been committed in Nigeria. As such, we don't need to believe everything that have been said by these people that have this view to be true. Absolutely.
I mean, if you recall that these three countries that went further by forming what they call Tripartite Defense Treaty, the Alliance of Sahel State, which was for them an alternative to ECOWAS, they are trying to also gather momentum, that way it looks like it's also weakening ECOWAS. That those are feels that ECOWAS are not living to expectation, that ECOWAS have derailed completely from what it meant to be, and this is the reason why these countries are having the courage and having the temerity to continue to fuel their strength and all of that. Is that the situation?
I don't want to believe that that is absolutely the situation, because if you look at ECOWAS history, ECOWAS have had a very long stand in what? In intervention in some of the African crises. In 1990, they intervened in Liberian situation. In 1993, they equally intervened in Sierra Leone. And in 2003, they intervened in some military revolts in Ivory Coast, and they didn't stop at that. Up till 2013, they equally intervened in Mali when there is some political upheavals, most especially from the jihadis and Islamists that were trying to destabilize the country. And they are always having these standby forces that is going to take control of any country that choose to derail from democratic system. Even in Gambia, if you can recall vividly, after the election, when Yahya Jammeh wanted to instill himself again to continue, ECOWAS were able to diplomatically reinstate a force that that persuaded him to leave the seat of presidency. Now, having said that, the world is moving toward adaptation of what we call soft diplomacy. I could have believed that ECOWAS could have keyed in much more that there is overheated polity, and then with the insecurity that is at hand within this region from terrorism, banditry, and a host of other political and conflict upheavals that are within this region. I could have expected that ECOWAS could have used his position and then be able to diplomatically win the heart of the military ruler, rather than making the threat that they are going to remove him from power so that they can reinstate a democratically elected president. They could have chosen the option of having a plan, a very short plan that we assist in bringing a democratically elected leader into power. Remember that if they refuse to do this, that means that the resources that Nigerian and some of these countries within this region are employing in trying to tackle a very humongous terrorist groups like Boko Haram and the bandits and the ISWAP, you are going to now be redirecting these resources that are not even enough in tackling issues that ought to have been settled amicably using the diplomatic option.
Doctor, let me take you to what Dr. Mara, former president of ECOWAS, once said. He warned that ECOWAS was facing an existential threat risks disintegration and worsening insecurity if the three countries have refused to reverse their decision. I mean, recall of that a move by some of these countries to disengage themselves from ECOWAS. This goes to the question about insecurity. The Sahel region, it looks at the back and forth, rising nooks and crannies of those regions, feeling all of the crisis we have today. There's a new terrorist group that has emerged. I don't know if you're aware of Lakura group.
Yes.
All of that has still be a concern. To you, what can you really describe about the situations right there? Because armed forces are saying we are tackling the matter, but it looks like they are having funding, they are having arms, and all of these questions. And recently, the Chief of Defense Staff, when he was being interviewed recently in the media, said that most of the 120,000 Boko Haram that surrendered came with a lot of ad funds that, I mean, United Nations should question where they got the funds from, where they have the capacity and the source of their funding. So issues of this Sahel region, I mean, is still putting a lot of Africa continent in danger, because this is what former ECOWAS chairman had to said.
Yes, I want to align with his position here, because I was privileged to have done something on banditry in Zamfara State, and then that exposed me to a lot of issues that are not known to me before. If you look at the axis between our border lines, you notice that they have been able to create these ungoverned areas between our border lines that is being taken over by these bandits, terrorists, and then a host of other criminal gangs, most especially the drug cartels. If it creates an atmosphere of an unrest, the drug cartel will be able to what? Move their illicit drugs easily. Remember that it's not easy for one to be involved in this act of terrorism without what? Influence of drug. As such, it's a win-win for both parties. So that might inform where they got those hard drugs from. And again, this region, Africa is so blessed. This region is very rich in uranium, in gold, for example, like Zamfara area, axis down to Sokoto. They are rich in natural resources that some unscrupulous foreign countries are wanting to tap from excavating all these resources,
through the back doors,
mining them through the back doors, so that they will not pay tax and all the necessary thing to the government. Because we've had in the news where some foreigners were caught with arms. Then we had during President Muhammadu Buhari's regime, you know that there was a time that he put a ban on the flying zone in Zamfara State. These are concerns that African countries need to take into what? Cognizance. That there are both internal and external forces that are trying to destabilize this region for their own selfish interests. Not until and when African countries can come together and jettison their political and ideological and then affiliation to their former colonial masters and see Africa first and work toward ensuring that, yes, whatever happened to Africa is a collective problem, because you cannot jettison what is happening in Niger from Nigeria, because we share the same border, and those roots are so close that if you can create a safe haven for those that, okay, let's say you are chasing the terrorists and then they get into the territory of Niger and they said you don't have the international, what is it called, permission to cross over our border. But when there is collaboration, then they will make those places equally to be what? Unsafe for these terrorists. So African leaders need to come together, and then they need to employ people that are well versed. We have a lot of seasoned diplomats that could work, that could structure a very fine and practicable and workable system for them that they can use to achieve. It is no longer fashionable for one to be using this military ideology and military might that, look, if you don't do this, I'm going to remove you from this and I'm going to do this or that. So African countries need to think out of the box and have a new paradigm shift, so to say, so that they can now focus on African development. Because if you see, most of the issues in this region is always bordered on what? Security, underdevelopment, trafficking, just as I forgot to mention that. So these people, they are collaborating with this terrorist group to make sure that what? They have a safe haven where they can just pass with their illicit goods and then trafficking of humans.
Because for more than 15 years, or if not more than, we've been trying to battle with these issues of terrorism in this region. That those that said, even if we are trying to blame the external forces, that we also have internal concern as well.
Yes.
Is that the situation?
Yes, we have internal, because you see the petty politics that we play. We have a system, a robust system, whereby our SIM cards are what? Linked to everyone's NIN. So why is it a Herculean task for them to be able to trace these people? Because of this type of what?
Even kidnapping now, they even make calls, through phone lines,
then they
even make payments.
They ransom through some banks, and you can see this. So some politicians are taking this lightly, not knowing that issues that have to border on what? Security are issues that are great concern. Because remember, where there is unrest, you can have any type of development.
And that's why we have government to protect.
To protect this. So because the resources that are not enough will now be redirected toward tackling issues of what? Issues of security and insecurity, which could have been what? Geared toward infrastructures, education, hospitals, and a host of other amenities.
A lot of concern, right, Doctor? I mean, when you look at the political tensions in this nation, there are those that are still attributing issues of unequal distribution of resources. Would you say, because if you look at that, saying some of those that have been engaged in some of these activities are probably idle, and some who said they have gone to school, some that they didn't go to school, and all of that. So they're easily, being recruited. Obasanjo recently said that if we continue to allow these out-of-school children to be on the rising side in this country, we're endangering the future of this nation. Looking at management of all of these concerns by the government, do you feel that there's also the need to also tackle that from the grassroots?
Yes. When you talk about issue of security, it should be holistic in approach. I do this in my class to my students. I say, if there is shortage of water, you could dig the ground and do what? And fetch water by digging the well. If there's no electricity, you can get a hand fan to fan yourself. But imagine when someone is hungry. You can't even persuade this person that, oh, sorry, you have to just go sleep, because the sleep won't come. So when they are hungry, they become what? Hopeless. And then there is what they call this theory of, what is it called? Frustration and aggression theory. So when they get frustrated, they become easily tools that some of these bandits and then terrorist group could what? To just employ them as their foot soldiers. Government have failed them in all ramifications, because if they have been employed, if you can put food on your table, when they are gainfully employed, they will not even have time to be what? To become foot soldiers for this terrorist group. As a matter of fact, in civilized countries, they try to make sure that it is a situation of what? Zero hunger. Food should be made available and employment should be made available. We are not saying that they should have social interventions whereby rice only will be shared to people. People should be made to be what? Responsible and to fend for themselves. And we believe this administration, on the mantra that they came in, that they are going to do what? They are going to feed the nation. If you recall, during his political campaign, that Agbado, what will they eat? So we are expecting that they should dive into this lofty idea and then kickstart maybe another green revolution for Nigeria, so that the youths can be gainfully employed. And there is another place that we are not really considering: the AI, the technology, and equally music, culture, because these youths can streamline, and then it sells Nigeria across the whole world. And people will get to do what? The image of Nigeria can be remade through what? Through music. I was in Kenya, and then the next thing they said, oh, you are Nigerian, we love Davido. One of the women said, oh, Igwe, because they are watching Nigerian movies. Because this will transfer from Nigeria through what? Through the internet, and people could access all of this. So I think it's high time for the government to look inward. You can see the menace that is happening in Abuja, the federal capital that we are. People are removing the manhole because I know they are hungry, but it's not a yardstick for them to say that, okay, they will involve in that. But when they are not gainfully employed, we should be rest assured that it's going to be a Herculean task for us to be able to stop this menace. So I think the government have to look inward and then speedily create an avenue whereby this could be tackled soon.
Doctor, that takes me to issues of, looking at the also economic growth in this region, because ECOWAS looking at what they mean to foster economic growth and political stability. But those are still having concern about the issues of trade relations within Africa. You know, recently Ghana has said, look, you can come into some African countries can have access to a country without visas and all of that. Where do we really can get it right in terms of trade? Because if Nigeria having a population of over 200 million, more than 200 million, and Ghana has a less population than Nigeria and other African as well, that those are really having a concern that, look, we would have probably see how we can galvanize all what we have, allow trade to be easier so as to get exports, import, and all of that to get economy working. What is the situation about trade relations, concern about this region? Because you said what we lost or what probably we will likely lose if we disconnect from Niger, or Niger get disconnected from us. Recall the other time that they had to give a sanction. You know what we are probably lost out from those times. What is the concern about the trade relations in these regions?
I think Africa can take this, there is this after this African trade, free trade area. Africa can key in, all African countries can key in, and then we could what? Unanimously form a formidable trade policy that we make Africa to be sellable and our products across the globe. Let me give you an example here. You notice that we have common goods that are being produced within Nigeria, Niger, and all West African countries. But one thing is lacking behind here, which is adding value to those raw materials. When we are able to add values to them, apart from crude oil, one of the hottest selling product in the world is coffee. Even though we don't do coffee much in Nigeria, but outside the country they drink a lot of coffee. Why? Just value addition and cocoa that they transform into what? Into the manufacturing of chocolates and other beverages. So African, and we need government intervention to have industrial zones with tax policies that will be robust and then will be favorable to people that are just coming up, and then so that they could employ the teeming youths that are unemployed, and then they can now employ the services of those that will standardize their products. And if they are able to do that, they could equally make the export processes not to be cumbersome, because there is a returnee from Nigeria and his outcry is, oh, it's very cumbersome getting products outside and then even importing. So all of these policies, I want to share this to the Minister of Trade to look inward and then create this hub so that people can be able to export finished product or near to finished product rather than just putting our energy in exporting just raw materials that will be sent back to us. You can look at the hide and skin, you can look at the cotton, you can look at our tailors are doing well now, so we could make the fabrics and then send them out of what? Out of Nigeria, and people over there are equally ready to access our goods. Not until when our branding is well captured. But if we are fall short of this, then I can assure you that we will still just be circling on the same issue of African products are not being accepted outside the country and stuff like that.
Prof, I mean, you may call it 14 or 15 months after President Tinubu recalled some career and non-career ambassadors, but it looks like they have not yet done any replacement. So that person are really having a concern that this has left Nigeria's diplomatic missions, fluctuating, where we do not have static voices to protect Nigeria's interests and have a proper negotiation. Looking at that, because it still falls back to the issue of foreign policy as well of this government, the President Tinubu had made some move when Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso handling the situations, and of course they've seen how they can actually persuade the military takeover. This was on his political, I would say, foreign policy as well. And this non-replacement of diplomat as well has still generated a concern about the role they ought to have played in always mediating the interests of Nigerians and all of that. Not just Niger, Libya, the other time, Super Eagles, fans had some terrible experiences in those regions. So it was a major issue. Speak to that fact. How important is the role of this diplomat? Because I see those that are really saying, Mr. President, just to make those replacement after he had recalled them.
Yes, thank you. I want to align with those that have this position that foreign policy is not a child's play, because you have seasoned diplomats, you have seasoned professionals that are well equipped that could handle or be advisors to some of these appointed political diplomats. I think that in most countries, the issue of appointment and selection of diplomats is like a give back that politicians are always giving to their own friends and cronies in the political space, so that, okay, thank you for assisting me to win election. Having said that, we need to realize that they are the image makers of our country. So if they get it wrong, it's going to affect our foreign policy makeup, and it's going to affect our interest in the international community. There was a professor of international relations that was that gave this advice then that the Nigerian government should establish technical aid corps. And when people were challenging that, oh, we have shortage of teachers, I say yes, this is to what? Remake the image of Nigeria in other countries, so that when they think about, oh, Nigerian doctors, when they think about Nigeria, it's not the issue of this popular saying that Nigerians are corrupt, blah, 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 blah. But with this, they'll be able to say, oh, doctors are from Nigeria, the teachers that taught me are from Nigeria. So I think the president need to hurry up on doing this and take a stand quickly in making sure that they do this, so that it could address the happenings in the ECOWAS region, for example. If you recall, the stand that was given by the president, I believe if he was duly advised, he couldn't have taken the military stand against Niger. Because 1 in every 5 people in Sokoto State is either a Niger citizen or have relationship with Niger. So don't be surprised that we might even...
So there's a cultural exchange, there's a marital exchange.
The border, as such, they don't see the people coming from Niger as someone...
From another country.
From another country. Because their interest lies in their own relationship. So even if you say you want to go in using the military force, they might jeopardize the aim, because they see them, oh, this is our interest. And a country where the government cannot afford to assist all the citizens, which is not possible across the globe. So now what they are having, where they are making their daily bread, and then you now want to put a disruption to it, that will not augur well with them. So it's very important and imperative that if this administration wants to get it right, they need to involve experts. And what we are doing in Nile, it might interest you to know that we are training our students for diplomatic simulation, away from the classroom environment. We take them out for debates, and then professional diplomats are training them so that they could assume this position. But let's assume when they graduate and then they are not being what? Fixed.
We have non-career diplomats.
And except when you are a politician, and then they could give you as a token for your contribution for winning the election for them.
A major concern, but for everyone. We don't have to go on a very quick break. Once we return from that break, we'll be looking at issues of, a concern about the military, the ECOWAS. We're calling for the military countries to hold free and fair elections. There are questions about if ECOWAS member states currently are themselves holding true to democracy. Still a major concern, which has also maybe issues of the regional politics within the ECOWAS and Africa as a whole. But for now, let's get to go on a very quick break, and once we return, we'll finalize with that conversation. Do stay with us. Policies and political actors are in the news every day, all day. And on our part, we guide you through the noise and get you to the heart of the matter. Big Talk is your home of all angle analysis of the top political stories. Airing weekdays on Global TV, 7 p.m. Big Talk, engaging and insightful. ECOWAS are pushing the military-led countries to hold a free and fair elections. Yet, question about ECOWAS member states, are they holding themselves true to democracies? There are a lot of concern about becoming an institutional laughing stock. Can you implement this when most of the other countries claiming to uphold the demand for democracy are not themselves true to democracy? These a lot of persons have also questioned on the capacity of the ECOWAS. Doctor, that was a major concern as well. They are actually, they said, you are leaving your own house to, address the issues. You also pay attention to your home as well. So clearly, that's what some person have argued with ECOWAS.
Yeah, thank you for bringing in this question. As a teacher, I have always said this to my students: democracy is not an end in itself. And I'm going to be giving you a simple analogy here. If you get a very good car, a brand new car, and you have a driver that is reckless, there is no guarantee that you get to your destination. But if you have a car that is still old, but you have a driver that is sound and careful and well-trained and is focused, I can assure you that he will get to his destination. Away from this now, let's narrow this to the situation of Africa. Nigeria, for example, and a host of other African countries. During the electioneering campaign, there are a whole lot of promises. Let's start from home, let's not go far. Our president has said it. What will the people eat? Agbado, ewa. But now, as I'm talking to you, these are the commodities that are out of reach of what? Of the poor people. Everybody is crying out loud. And if perchance you have a country like Niger, whereby the military have taken over the what is it called? And then the military,
and the people are happy.
And the people are happy. You can see the out. We are not saying that military regime is the best. However, if the alternative that we are supposed to hold on to is worse, maybe, or close to that, then the people will just jump into the moving train and rekindle a new hope that maybe this will be better than the previous regime. So it is imperative for leaders across Africa to know that in governance, there are some basic necessities that you must, I want to repeat, that is imperative that people should what, the leaders must what, key into, providing the basic necessity. If you cannot do this, irrespective of your lofty ideas, I want to give an example with what has happened in Nigeria. Maybe, I don't know how robust is the budget that they use in putting in the train from Abuja to Kaduna. But with the unrest, you see that some passengers will choose not to work. Is underutilized. So let's assume that the country were able to channel this money into production of food, employment, and people could travel even though it's by road, even at whatever time, but the security situation is guaranteed because human security is guaranteed through employment. And as such, the president will have little to worry about. Now they are going to, they've been cutting some of the street lights in Abuja. So you have to recreate another one with iron. Then you have to bring in securities to man them. But imagine where everybody is fine. They could afford their daily meals. And then they could stay in their humble homes. They will not wake up at night and wanting to go and destabilize government property. So the type of democracy that we are having in Nigeria and across other African states is the type of democracy that enriches what? The pockets of most of the leaders. And that is why you see the type of programs that they bring in, from getting a new jet to yacht to things that are not going to affect the teeming population. And they want people to think and believe in their own ideology. But if you have a selfless leader, a welfare state, then people will accept that yes, democracy is the word, is the way to go. But anything that falls short of this, I can assure you that people will just be praying that, okay, God, give us the best. We don't even know, because they will not believe in the fundamental ideals of democracy.
For about 25 years of practicing unbroken democracy, has our election gotten better?
In principle, yes, because there are a lot of intervention from the Professor Jega's intervention, from card reader to this. And if you can look at it, I could recall there used to be a time in Nigeria whereby the outcome of election in some states is even more than the total population of the state. But nowadays, in recent time, you will see that it is very difficult for leaders to be able to bring out outrageous numbers of such nature. And again, some leaders are waking up, most especially from the last election. We could see there is one of the candidates that his first attempt was able to shake Nigeria, and people were now coming out, some tribal groups that were not known to be voting before, they took it so serious. And I want to believe that yes, that is a wake-up call for what? For Nigerian politicians to know that yes, the voices of the people will surely count one day, and is counting. We can see some of the new political parties winning position across Nigeria. This is a testament to show that yes, Nigeria, we are improving in terms of our act of electioneering and issues that have to do with election.
Dr. Abdulrazak Saliu is a lecturer of Political Science Department, Department of Political Science and International Relations from Nile University. Of course, doing justice to this conversation. Thanks so much, Doctor, for joining us and sharing your thoughts on this concern. We'll continue to track this development, and of course, we do hope to have you again on the show. Thank you, Doctor. A lot of concern about the issues of terrorism, financing, regional politics, Nigeria's relation, which has led to France to respond. Again, they have denied these allegations made by the Niger Republic military leader Tijani that Nigeria had offered space in its territory to France to destabilize the former French colony. And this was coming from the counselor to the embassy in Nigeria, Radia Bertrand, who called the allegation groundless and said that such discussion never took place between France and Nigeria. But in the whole of that, a concern about how African leaders can continue to also pay attention in addressing the issues within the region. Mismanagement of resources by way of corruption has also been a concern. The political tensions within this region, how elections can be upheld to really reflect the true democracies is still a major topic and a focus for many Nigerians. But for us to get it right, it also takes leadership to get things to work. And that, of course, has been some of these final conclusions and submission by Dr. who had joined us on the show tonight to express this concern. We'll keep on tracking this development and seeing what it means for Nigeria's Niger, what this may actually lead to in terms of implications as well as impact of it. That's the size of a show tonight, everyone on Big Talk. My name is Rickard Michael. See you again.